What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in the last video, I got all of the vacuum lines and the blow off valve or bypass valve reconnected on the stock turbo. So everything is pretty much completely done. The only thing I've got to do is get everything back on there that connects to it. So charge pipes, the intake, the exhaust, I think that's it. So I'm probably just gonna do like the downpipe first, and then I'll throw the intake and charge pipes on, do kind of like a first startup, make sure the oil runs through, there's no leaks and stuff like that, refill my coolant back up. And then when I'm done with that, I will get the rest of the catback system on there and then take this thing for a drive. Stay tuned. Here are the stock charge pipes and the stock intercooler. I am going to leave the CPE intercooler on there, but I am going back to the smaller charge pipes. This smaller turbo is not going to flow near as much air as the bigger turbo did, so these smaller pipes are not going to matter. Not to mention, I would have to put the block off plate on the side of the turbo to use the tile blow off valve. I'm going to start with the charge pipes, get those on there first, and then I will probably move on to the intake after that. For the stock charge pipes, they're pretty easy. The big pipe here on the big end, it goes to the intercooler, small end goes to the turbo. You do have a bolt and a nut right here that mounts for these two holes, so it doesn't use the same locations as the CPE hot charge pipe. It's weird, the motor has like pre-drilled holes already underneath that are unused, like they're tapped and everything, and so that's where the CPE charge pipes mount. And then for the small pipe over here, this end goes to the intercooler, and then this end right here with this double coupler little section goes up into the intake. Stock charge pipes are back on. So there's the cold side, and then here is the hot side right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the intake on. When I bought this car, it actually came with this aftermarket intake. I think the actual intake is a Cobb intake, and they put this little cheap filter. I don't know if it's cheap, but I've seen this brand at like AutoZone, Spectra or whatever, but it's actually worked great. I've never had any issues out of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this back on, and then I will start working on getting the downpipe on. For this intake, it's just one hose clamp that will go onto the turbo, and then I will have to tighten this one back down. I will probably have to remove this to put it back in there. I may not have to. And then I have one wire harness per here, and then this is, I believe, some sort of recirculation valve or pressure release valve. I had to go searching for this hose clamp right here. Luckily for me, I am a pack rat and I keep everything. It was up in the attic in the box that the blow-off valve came in. The intake is back on, not a whole lot to do with that, so pretty easy to put that back on. Now I'm gonna get the downpipe back on. So I'm gonna put the Cobb downpipe back on. I do still have the stock downpipe, but I've never actually driven the car with the stock turbo with like a full bolt-on setup. When I bought the car, it had the stock turbo, it had a catback exhaust, it did have the intake, but no tune, no nothing like that. So it's kind of exciting, even though I'm going from, big turbo to stock turbo. I've never had this thing full bolt on. I never tried out any of the Cobb off the shelf tunes. I never had a custom tune on the stock turbo. So Yeah, I'm pretty actually excited about this. For this downpipe, it's pretty simple. So just a couple of bolts in the back here that mount it to the car. And then you have your downstream O2 sensor, upstream O2 sensor. And then you have the gasket and the V-band clamp that clamps it to the turbo. I don't know if anybody else has bought this downpipe or any of the other like catless downpipes, but the V-band clamp, getting it onto the big turbo, and maybe it was having the big turbo, I don't know, but getting the V-band clamp off of the stock turbo, I initially did not have any issues. But putting it back on, connecting this downpipe to the big turbo, I'll try to show you where this hits. And I don't know if it was one of my lines that I just disconnected, maybe the little elbow where the coolant goes in was just a little bit too close in, but I mean, it was a pain in the butt. I eventually was able to get it on and get it off, obviously, but it was not without struggle. Downpipe is all connected up to the turbo, but I wanted to show you guys what I was talking about with the big turbo. So you can see here, I have plenty of clearance. Let me see if I can get my hand up in here to show you. But it's this little piece right here. The V-band clamp kept hitting it and I could not get it off. I mean, it took me forever and I busted up some knuckles trying to get it off. But also I'm noticing now that the coolant line right here, the elbow actually travels this way, but the line that they give you with the ATP kit, with as short as it is, you have to make the elbow come off at the angle that's pretty much exactly opposite. It's basically shooting this way. So it was hitting that as well. So that's the problem that I was having. I'm not sure if anybody else has had this issue, but everything's connected now. So I'm gonna go try to start this thing up. I do want to connect the rear motor mount because when it cranks up, I do not want it slinging back and hitting anything. Other thing I'm going to do before I start the car up is flash the OEM tune on the car. I'm going to toss this charger on the battery too. I remember last time when I had the hood open, I think that it actually drained the battery. It looks like the car is working just fine because when I open the door, all the lights come on. But I'm going to hook this thing up while I flash the tune, and then I should be able to get this thing started. Shout out to my buddy Jonathan, J-Max. He lent me this charger years ago for some motorcycles, and he never came back and picked it up, but I appreciate it. And if you're watching this, you can come pick it up anytime. Stock tune is loaded on the car. First startup. Cross your fingers. It's extremely loud with that downpipe. Car started up just fine, and there are no leaks down here, so we are good to go. That downpipe is ridiculously loud. I played it back on my camera, and it didn't sound very loud, but in person in this garage, it is insanely loud. But now that everything is connected back on, I know the turbo is good to go. I'm going to go ahead and get the front bumper back on, and then I will get the cat back part of the exhaust hooked back up the mid pipe here, and then I'll take this thing for a little drive. Front bumper is back on, headlights are in, and then I've got my hood latch here reattached with my nice handy dandy lime neon green zip tie. That looks ridiculous. I'll change that out for a black one. Now that I've got the front bumper on, I'm gonna get the mid pipe connected to the rest of the exhaust. So this back here, they're both super simple. So it's just 2 bolts, 2 nuts, and then a gasket on either end. So this side going to the back of the exhaust, and then this side going to the downpipe. It is actually the next day, so everything uninstalling this big turbo and putting the stock turbo back on there, I have not ran into a single issue. And then I finally ran into my first issue, and going to put the mid pipe back on and where it connects to the back of the exhaust, it's not a big problem, but the gasket is like broken in half. It's kind of coming off into pieces. So let me show you that really quick. Here it is. You can see it just broke in half, and then there's a few pieces I actually had to chisel away because they had like burned on there. But luckily I went on Amazon yesterday evening. It was a little after 4 o'clock, and I ordered a couple of gaskets, and they actually came in today. I mean, literally next day delivery. So I actually got a couple of these. I went ahead and put one of them on here, and then I've got everything already back ready to go. So I'm gonna put the car on the ground and then take it for a drive. Everything sounds good so far. No check engine lights. Let's take this thing for a little cruise. Definitely don't hear that big turbo whistle anymore. It is getting late, so I'm not going to drive for very long, but I just wanted to come out and take her for a spin. I don't really want to drive it too hard right now either. That turbo's been sitting for a while, so I'm going to let it just run that oil through there, and then I'll change the oil later on. All right, guys, I am back at the garage. The car actually drove great. The stock tune felt a little weird. I think it was all the bolt-ons. The boost was doing some jumpy things. I think it's just, you know, all the added airflow from the intake exhaust. But as you can see, it is dark outside. So in the next video, I'll get all this stuff on, and then I am going to play around with some of the tunes. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please give it a like. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and I will catch you next time.